Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kyra, and here on this channel we love our makeup. But we especially love using the makeup that we already have. And we're also looking for real makeup for real life and real people like us. Today's video I'm very excited to do. It is my top 5 eyeshadow palettes for spring. I really wanted to narrow this down to the top 5 eyeshadow palettes that I love to reach for in spring. I also have a couple of bonus single eyeshadows for you in case that's your jam. And with all of that said, let's get into it. So let's start off by talking about what I'm really looking for in a spring palette. Of course, I'm looking for soft colors, pastels, grassy greens, and other sort of brighter versions of shades that I already love. I'm also looking for soft duochrome eyeshadows as well as a lot of sparkle. And I'm looking for more neutrals, less warm, less cool, more just right in that middle ground. And that is what I'm looking for eyeshadow palettes in the spring. So let's go ahead and talk about those single eyeshadows that I mentioned. The first one is one that I've had for quite some time. It is the Colourpop Super Shock Shadow in the shade Sailor. This is like a beautiful beigey base with a flip on it, or a sheen or a reflect, the same color as my shirt. It's a beautiful light aqua blue shade, and I absolutely love this shadow. I really enjoy Colourpop Super Shock shadows, and I've had really good luck with them. I haven't had any dry out on me yet, and I just think that they can be really fun. This can be tapped over any eye look, or worn alone, or you can do something like I did today where I used a couple of soft pastels in the crease and then a more neutral but reflecting pastel shadow like this one on the lid. Highly recommend, and just in general I really enjoy the Colourpop Super Shock Shadow formula. One that's a little bit newer to my collection but comes highly recommended from a couple of my favorite YouTubers, specifically Amanda Z. She is the queen of wet looking eyeshadows. She's the queen of creams, and I love her so much. I will link her channel down below, but this is the Ulta Beauty Bouncy eyeshadow in the shade Italian Ice, and this is just that is definitely a problem. One thing I will say about these Ulta Bouncy shadows, and I've had this problem with other similar shadows. For example, I have one from Essence, one of their melted chrome eyeshadows, and because they're in a plastic pan and they're kind of a similar formula to a Super Shock shadow, they're kind of putty like, they do not stay in these pans very well. So I'm gonna get a good swatch for you. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And again, it's kind of a neutral shadow with just a lot of sparkle. It's pretty sheer, so I do like to layer it on top of other shadows, but clearly, we have some faulty packaging here. I like this a lot. There's different shades, but this one is just kind of a soft rosy beige with a lot of like silvery light pink sparkle to it. So I do really enjoy it. However, the packaging could obviously be better. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the palette I have on my eyes today, and that is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. I automatically think of this palette when I think of pastel eyeshadows, even though it has a lot more than pastels to offer in here. You do have a good amount of like neutral shadows in here, and like I said, this is the palette that I used today. I used the shade Libra all over in my transition and crease, and then I brought in the shade Haze on the outer corner and a little bit up into the crease. On the outer corner, I used the last shade in the palette, which is Frazzled. And then I went in with this beautiful sort of pinky taupe called Galaxy on the inner part of the lid. Then took Cosmic and put that on my inner corner. I really enjoy this palette. It has a lot of fun textures in it that I don't feel like she has represented in some of her newer palettes. Some of these absolutely feel like a soft putty like cream eyeshadow, like a Super Shock shadow, and the result of that is just that they smooth on and blend beautifully. And then, of course, it also checks my boxes of softer duochromes as well as sparkle. Tons and tons of sparkle. So I love this one for spring, and I did do a look over on my Instagram and TikTok. So if you want to check that out, be sure to follow me over there. And then for a newer palette, this is exactly the epitome of a spring palette in my eyes, and that is the Natasha Denona Pastel palette. She's very new, but I did do 4 looks plus with this palette. I'll link that video down below in case you missed it. But again, this checks all my boxes: soft pastels, brighter versions of colors I already love, duochromes, and sparkle. I absolutely adore this palette. I think she did a really, really good job. I love that you have 4 cream to powder shadows in here because they come off softer and more like watercolors on the eyes than some of the regular matte shadows. And in general, I just think you can't go wrong with this palette. I love this shade right here called Dainty, and also the shade right here called Duet. There are 2 of the duochromes in this palette, and they are just gorgeous. This is definitely a palette I can see myself reaching for a lot in the spring, and even not just as a standalone palette, but as a companion palette as well. I would love to do some really neutral looks with my Pan That palette, which is the Tarte Clay Play, and then pick any of these pastels to just do a matte lid, but in a beautiful pastel shade. I think that's going to be really fun. And of course, I'm looking forward to adding the duochromes to many other looks as well. An oldie but a goodie, and unfortunately a discontinued palette that I still pull out every single spring and in times in between, is the Juvia's Place Deuce palette. This is one of my oldest palettes left in my collection, and it's because I absolutely love these shades. I even love to use this pink shadow here as a blush during the spring, especially when I'm wearing this palette. And this more like terracotta shade is a beautiful blush as well. But this again checks all my boxes: brighter colors. We have this nice soft green, as well as these 2 pinks here. This one is like a duochrome, pinky white duochrome, and this one is the most beautiful icy pink shade. I love it so much, and I just think this is such a unique palette. I also love this like silvery gray blue shimmer down here, and I just love this. I also love this purpley orchid shade right there. I think it would make a beautiful one shadow look, but I also really love it as a base to show off these 2 more pinky shades. So I'm sorry that it's discontinued and you can't get it, but if you already have it, this is your reminder to pull it out for spring. Another more affordable option for spring is one of my favorite Colourpop palettes of all time, and that is the Blush Crush palette. I cannot explain to you why I have such a fiery passion for this palette, but I do. I love that it has peach and pink, as well as these more like orchidy purple shades down here. I don't know, it's just so beautiful. You have yourself a Super Shock shadow formula up at the top, which is beautiful and full of sparkle, as well as 2 duochrome shades here. I just love this thing. I think it is one of the most beautiful palettes that Colourpop has ever put out. These are definitely a little bit more on the warm side, but I love this thing. Let me know below If you have this, do you want to see a few looks with this? This is one palette out of my Colourpop collection that I have not done like a 2 or 3 looks, one palette. So I'd be happy to do that if y'all are interested in this one or have this one and want to see a few looks with it. But I just love that there's everything in this palette that I need. You know, there's light, medium, and dark tones. There's different options for shimmers. It's just absolutely stunning, and I think it would work on a variety of skin tones, which makes it a good option for spring. And then lastly, but certainly not leastly, the most expensive palette in this roundup is my Natasha Denona TrioChrome palette. I really love this palette, and honestly, I'm not even talking about these duochromes, although they are stunning. I'm more into this palette for spring for the mattes. You have those beautiful grassy greens, you have some purple in here, a beautiful peach with a terracotta mid-tone to add to it. Like, there just is so much to have and to love in this palette for spring. I'm so very glad that I did pick this up when I did, because it is exactly what I hoped it would be. It is a collection of brighter mattes in a formula that I absolutely adore. And this is also, again, kind of like her Pastel palette. This is a really great support palette for spring. With all of these mattes, you could really set up a crease or an eye look and then go in with any number of duochromes, shimmers, sparkles. You know, the sky's the limit. So I really, really love this palette. And again, if any of these palettes that I haven't done looks with, I think, you know, the Pastel one I have a video with, and I don't think I have a video with Mercury Retrograde, though I do have a look up over on my Instagram. So if there's any of these palettes that you would like to see a look or multiple looks from for spring, let me know down below and I'd be happy to do that for you. So that is what I have for you today. I would love to know also down in the comments what your favorite spring palettes are, new, old, or otherwise. I'm always curious what other people are pulling out for each of the different seasons. And here on YouTube, we love to talk about things in a seasonal manner. So get ready, because I have more spring content coming for you, including my top 5 blushes for spring. And I also have a top 5 lippies for spring over on my TikTok. All of that is linked in the description box down below. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I appreciate your time as always. I hope if you did like this video that you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. That way I can see you in my next video very, very soon. And I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days. And I'll see you soon.